All right. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing? I hope you guys are having your coffee or have had your coffee. If not, round two is underway for sure. Thank you for joining us for our webinar Wednesdays here at Talent View. So before we start, I'm seeing all the attendees coming in. So I just wanted to say hi to a few of our friends. I can see Trang from Vietnam. Hello, Trang. Nice to see you here. Jade from Sidos. Ayi from Sykes. Thank you for joining us. Martha from Ribisco. And to everyone who's joining us for the first time for Webinar Wednesdays, thank you so much for being here. And I hope that we're all adjusting to, I guess, what we now call the new normal. So topic for this morning is driving culture, connection, and collaboration in this new normal where we find ourselves in. So over the next 30-40 minutes, we're just going to be sharing a few, I would say, resources that we have. We're sharing a lot of the research we've been able to put together in the past couple of weeks that hopefully can guide you in how you're managing your workforce during this time. Move right. I'm showing you your panel. Just for you not to be confused, you've got a lot going on in your screen. So, of course, main screen where we have the slides for the topic. Whatever I'm sharing with you right now is something that we'll send to you after. So you don't need to take screenshots. We're happy to send this entire deck to you after. On your right, you've got your feedback piece. So at the end of this session, please feel free to let us know what we're doing right and how we can improve our entire Webinar Wednesday series. You'll also see on the left the resource list. So whatever we're sharing to you aside from the slides, any downloads that we feel are relevant, any resources that you can share back to your team, you'll be able to pull that on the resource list. And then if you've got any questions on your bottom part of the page, you'll see a Q&A portion. So just feel free to fire away if there's anything you want clarified, and we're going to get our team very quickly on picking up that question. All right. So agenda for today is just 3 points. How to deepen engagement and sustain culture in organization. How can we streamline communication so that people feel connected to our leaders? So here we'll share a bit of stats and a framework that we've developed at Talent View. And how do we ensure collaboration and monitor the productivity of the organization? Right? Before I move any further, just a quick introduction on myself. So my name is Ange Vera. I'm the CEO of Talent View. We've been doing this for quite some time, and we have operations across the ASEAN region, across 200 corporate clients. I've been in HR for about 15 years now. It's been a long time. Let's not compute and track back to that, right? And I've also written a book very specifically for those who are in the talent acquisition. Rethink Recruitment. Do check that out. I talk about all the different ways in which recruitment is changing. And I'm sure that today we're also going to pick up some of those topics. All right. So a quick introduction as well of Talent View. So we're all about helping companies build their employer brand. And that's across 3 parts. The first part is strategy. So how do I manage perceptions of my candidates, of my employees? How do I approach the market? How do I present myself? Not my consumer brand, but who I am as an employer. The second is design. So we've got a team that's complete with graphics, multimedia management, video producers, editors, just to help you manage all the social media channels that you have in case you need any help and support. And the third piece, which I believe is so critical, is technology. So how do you scale up with technology? How do you make sure that you're using the right tools to get everything going inside and outside your organization, whatever collaboration that needs to happen? So we've partnered up with Workplace by Facebook. You're probably familiar with this. Talligent, which is our online assessment platform, and a host of other technologies, which we will tackle depending on where our topic goes for today. So I talked about 200 corporations in the region. So these are the leading brands we work with, a lot of them multinational corporations and also large local conglomerates. So we'll kickstart our discussion with a quote. And this one is very recent, coming from Mark Cuban. He's a billionaire entrepreneur. And if you watch Shark Tank, one of the, I would say, fixtures in that entire series. So he says, how companies respond to that very question is going to define their brand for decades. If you rushed in and somebody got sick, you were that company. If you didn't take care of your employees or stakeholders and put them first, you were that company. So it's so crucial, whatever you're doing during this crisis, whatever way you're handling the challenges of today, that will define you for a very long time. So even in HR, even in our role, the steps we're taking, even if you feel that the people aren't seeing it, aren't listening to it, everybody's watching. And again, we cannot control the situation. Obviously, we're in a crisis, but I believe we can always control our values. And this is something that should drive the way we make decisions going forward. It's just really aligning to those values. And over our research, 6 core things that help companies set themselves apart during this challenging time. And we call this the extended workplace design framework. And it comprises of, number 1, enhanced leadership communication, 2, resilient implementation, or how you're able to implement everything across multiple devices. The third is culture and collaboration mindset. So how are you managing your team? How are you keeping them productive and engaged? Obviously, the fourth is a given, reliable and secure connectivity. We need to make sure that our bandwidth and internet requirements are in a way met for us to continue business. The fifth is optimized integration. So how are you able to put together pieces of the puzzle to make everything work seamlessly for you, so that you don't need to make reports twice. And the last is data-driven change. So as you're getting information, as you're collecting data from your teams, how are you adjusting? How are you responding to that? So these 6 things we're going to talk about in detail today to support our topic of designing culture, collaboration, and connection. And again, we call this the extended workplace design because we really believe that if the people can't come to the company, right now the situation, I'm sure you know, is that it's the company that's coming to the homes and workplaces of people today. So that's why it's extended. That's why we have to, in a way, reflect our office, our culture into the homes of the people that are working for us and working in our teams. And in a way that's sort of like an extension. And the very first thing that's required, and we're a bit longer now into the lockdown or the community quarantine, right? So we know that this is critical. I'm sure you've done this to a certain extent. Enhanced leadership communication. Our leaders, they've got to be at the forefront of everything. They've got to make the crucial announcements. We can't let people go blind and not find out what's going on. And we've made a 3-part checklist for this. The very first one is let leaders define the reality of your organization. So when this whole pandemic started, you'll notice a lot of leaders came forward and made announcements, something like, we will not make any COVID-19 related layoffs or deductions. Or maybe sometimes there were leaders that had to give the reality and say, we all have to take a pay cut, starting with themselves, and just defining that reality for their organization, depending on where you are. Obviously, some industries are more hurt than others, and again, it's not up to the employees to decipher what's going on in the market. It's actually up to the leaders to try and explain that and give more sense to our team members. So that's the very first one. Let leaders in your company define the reality. The second is deploy your crisis communication plan. So what does that mean? When we say crisis communication plan, is it just the leaders? I'm sure that trickles down. You let managers talk to their teams. You hold weekly meetings with managers. You do an all hands. You do a town hall. You do a general assembly. So whatever it takes for us to roll out a comp plan that helps people navigate through this challenge, through this crisis, that should be something that's rolled out in the very first week, if not, earlier. And the third is mobilize your leaders. Leaders don't just rest in the C-suite. You actually have your supervisors, you have your managers, you have your directors. All that needs to trickle down so that to the very last employee, to the very last team member, everyone is reached with timely communication. So you've got to disseminate critical information fast, get them to your directors, to your managers, and make sure that circles back and that's completed. I remember at the start of this lockdown, right, when the governments announced that everyone should be working from home, the first week we were hearing companies where their people still went to work, because apparently one manager passed the message to a supervisor, but that supervisor did not pass the message on time to their team. So some of those members had no idea that their company was already implementing work from home. So they still went to work for 1 or 2 days before the announcement got to them. So how fast are you? How quick are you able to respond to the changes? We're obviously monitoring the situation. Nothing is constant here. So your communication is key, and it really, really starts with your leader. And just to give you this stat, right? 91% of employees think that their leaders lack communication skills. And this is painful, but we have to take it, because oftentimes a lot of the information gets muddled at certain leadership levels, which now is non-negotiable. So it's something we need to address. If we haven't addressed it in the past, we'll have to address it in this. All right. So that's enhanced leadership communication. The second piece is resilient implementation. What does this mean? I talk about the extended workplace. And if you really look at it, we're all forced to work using our own devices. Very few companies, I'll be happy if I hear that you guys are one of the few companies that are able to send the equipment to your employees or to your team members. Oftentimes, right now, our people are working using their mobile phones. Our people are working using their own laptop, using their own desk, who's using work-related devices. So when I say resilient implementation, what I mean is, can your systems, can your tools work with these personal devices? Can your technologies enter and extend into the homes of your employees? So again, we take on a 3-part checklist. The first one is take an audit of all your technology platforms. What are you guys using? You're probably using Microsoft. You're using maybe Google Drive, Google Hangouts. You're probably using Zoom. You're using some tools for recruitment. Maybe you're using Workday to manage your HR information. Whatever those tools may be, put them on a list and make sure that these tools, you know their function, you know what they're doing for your organization. That's the very first thing. Just take an audit. Just run them through a list. And the second is assess your capability to continue using these platforms. Because again, it's going to run on personal devices. So I've heard of this story many times over the past couple of weeks, right? Where some of the platforms or systems that people are using don't work on a mobile phone. And people are probably looking at it like a web browser and trying to enlarge because they can't see. So you have to now look at your list and say, which of these will run seamlessly, smoothly outside the office? So that's the second thing, is make sure that, again, there is resilient implementation. And the third piece is reinforce policies that comply with your data management standards. Of course, we have to still maintain security, data privacy, and and encourage proper use of tools and technologies to serve your customers. So what I mean by this is the tools that you've written up, we now have to use them in a different way. So one of the things that struck me, one of the stories that I heard is about video interviews. Before, video interviews were done at the final step, meaning you only do video interview a short-listed candidate. But now, obviously, there's no walk-in applicants. There's no, I would say, face-to-face interaction that you can schedule interviews. So I've heard of companies that have moved up that video interview piece to the start of the funnel so that any candidate that still wants to apply and come into the talent pool, you simply take a video interview and that recording sits with the company. So the moment opening, they can just look at the results and review the candidates. So it's that. How do you now look at technologies and make sure that they're still relevant for today? You talk about Viber, you talk about Messenger. All of us are using these open platforms that are posing, I guess, a threat to security because these are not IT sanctioned platforms. When you build a group on Viber, when you build a group on Messenger, these are informal. You're sharing files here, maybe. I hope not, but people are sharing files on Viber, confidential data, confidential files. So we want to make sure that all technologies, whether it's formal or informal, you guys have an audit of that. Especially in HR, people are using the tools that are most convenient for them, isn't it? We're so used to WhatsApp, we're so used to Messenger. We don't even think of it. We create a group, not knowing that, are these allowed? Do we even ask the question, is this allowed in our organization or is this a security threat? So think about it in that way. Think about your technologies in that way. And when we look at the studies, one research point shows that companies and organizations that communicate effectively are 4.5 times more likely to retain the best employees. So obviously this is given, but this is even highlighted further in this crisis because now we're stuck with the communication tools that we have. It's not easy to just go to the desk of our office mate and say, hey, can you help me finish this report? Hey, can you help me finish this project? That's done. Somebody's back and just ask for their help. We have to work with the tools that we're given. And as HR leaders, we have to make sure that we've given our people the right tools. So that's number 2, resilient implementation. Number 3, culture and collaboration mindset. So this one, I believe, this one is something we own. As HR leaders, this is on us. Not to say that others aren't going to do this, but we are the drivers of culture and collaboration in this time. And 3-part checklist, the very first thing we need to do is point your team to the right sources of information. There's so much fake news. I cannot stress it enough. Every day as you go through Facebook or as you go through your feeds, even at work, as you go through the information, sometimes it's just fake news that's spreading. So please, one of the things we need to do is get our people onto the right sources of data. So do you look at World Health Organization? Do you look at CNN? Do you look at any particular news channels where you know the information is correct? Because the worst thing that can happen, or one of the worst things that can happen, is a random employee from your team sends out a WhatsApp message to the whole company, sends out a Viber or Messenger message to the whole company, and cites a fake news source that probably says, your company is going to send out all the laptops to all employees, whatever their location, So if you're not ready for that, and that's fake news, it's going to be very hard. Or even on the topic of mass testing, I'm seeing companies now that are starting to buy their own mass testing kits for their companies. And if you happen to be sharing fake news and you guys are not ready to take on that, that's going to be a big problem. That's going to be a big source of misinformation. And we want to be able to control that. So that will be the first thing on the checklist. I would. And rethink how your current tools can be improved to fill the gap in communication. Or, do you need new tools to put in place? So once you've done your audit, right, you also have to ask the question, is this building the collaboration that I want to see in my teams? Or am I breaking it even further? Am I the one creating the silos? So one of the stories that I heard is from previous companies that I've seen, right, over the past couple of weeks, is every manager decides what group and what platform to use. So one manager may be comfortable in WhatsApp, so their team conversations happen in WhatsApp. One manager is more comfortable in Viber, so their team conversations happen on Viber. And then when you now talk to the leaders and you ask them what's going on, where are the files, what's happening with your team, everybody just pulls up their informal platforms. So again, it's so hard if you're working on a project that I would say is cross-collaborative, where you've got people from finance, people from marketing, people from HR. All your sources, all your groups, all your conversations are just spread out. Maybe some sit on your intranet, some sit on informal channels. So how do you, as an HR leader, sort of bring that back together and say, okay, guys, we need to be bringing all our project conversations into this area. We need to be bringing all collaboration and engagement in this area. I think that's even more of a struggle when it comes to our third point, which is engagement, right? So engaging your employees the way you would in an office. Somebody has a birthday, somebody has a work anniversary. Obviously, you're not able to celebrate that live. If you're not in one platform, if you're not in one community, or if HR leaders haven't built that community, how do you do that? How do you greet someone happy work anniversary, but nobody sees it because they're not on the platform that you chose? It's going to be very difficult. In our own office, because we have a unified platform, we're able to bring, again, that extended workplace setup, whether that's through a TikTok challenge, whether that's through a bingo challenge, celebrating birthdays, celebrating anniversaries. We're able to bring that in and translate that into a digital platform. So engagement is key during this time, because you definitely want to see people collaborating. You definitely want to see people exchanging conversations, still working on projects, still being productive. And our role here is how to drive that engagement. So think about it. Again, you probably did or do an audit of your technologies. Which of the platforms you have can drive the most engagement? And that's something that you'll need to solve, because as we're monitoring the situation, we know that the lockdown and the crisis is just going, extending itself as well and taking longer to resolve. It used to be that it was just going to be like a 1 month lockdown or maybe even 5-6 weeks. But now you talk of Singapore that's extended to June. And you look at the news in Spain and Italy and the rest of Europe, where they're saying that they're going to close their borders and restart tourism late Q4 or even 2021. So all these come into play. We cannot just rely on hope. And I'll say this once, this session, right? Hope is not a strategy. You can't just hope that things will get better. You can't just hope that things will come back to normal. Hope is not a strategy. If we want to build culture, if we want to increase connections in our company, we have to build it and plan and lay out a really clear step plan for it, right? And showing the stats again, obviously, you know this, all of us here are HR leaders. Good company culture increases revenue by 4 times. And This statistic is coming even before this crisis. So can you imagine what this will do present day? For some that are not able to drive culture and are badly hit, of course, it will be a defining moment for you. We'll have to wait and see how things progress. But obviously, any company that has a better culture will come out stronger and better prepared than those that don't. All right. The fourth is reliable and secure connectivity. This is a given. So I'm just going to walk through the 3-part checklist to make sure that you have everything covered. The first one is check on each team member's level of access to communicate the importance of and communicate the importance of connectivity rather during the crisis. So when I say level of access, what I mean is, do they have enough bandwidth to run the tools and technologies and communication platforms that you have? I've heard of organizations, larger MNCs, that are insisting on their intranet. So obviously that's going to be a struggle. But, there are success stories. I've seen companies where they've brought some of their servers onto the cloud and have tried to still maintain that intranet even while people are working from home. So if you can do it and if you can accommodate that bandwidth, by all means. But check your resources, check what you have to put to good use teams. Sometimes people, not sometimes, a lot of times, people default to their old habits. So unless you tell them, this is the platform we will use for files, this is the platform we will use for video conferencing, they'll just come back to their old habits. I still get calls on my Viber. I still get calls on my WhatsApp, even if we have work platforms. So again, just keep on communicating to your teams and try to discourage it. If, somebody calls you on WhatsApp and you think it's not the right tool, I usually just reject the call and say, please call me on our official platform. So I would encourage you to do the same so that the behaviors start to get shared across the company. Second, is conduct a QA, quality assurance, of the flow of information, top down and bottom up. And the question I put here is the information compromised and are goals being accomplished on time? So I talked about the C-level passing on their information to directors. Maybe you have a change in strategy or you have a different approach to your customer support. So that's your leaders passing on to directors, passing on to managers, passing on to supervisors, all the way up to the teams. Question to you guys is, how fast does that information travel? You have to find that speed. Is it 1 day? Is it 5 days? Is it 2 weeks? Because if it's taking 2 weeks for that information to come across to the entire team, we have a problem. We have a serious problem. In this crisis, information spreads and there's a lot of information. So for your announcements not to get muddled, they have to travel the speed of 1 day, I would say. In the same day, people should get that information, because by the second day, new information's coming up. That the previous day's information is already obsolete. So you've got to make sure, you have to find a way to make sure that that information travels fast and travels accurately, because we always see organizations we work with, right, where it's past the message. From the CEO to the directors, the message is one paragraph. This is our customer strategy. We're going to talk to customers. We're going to tell them to order this much. We're going to tell them that we're going to send the invoice this way. We're going to do this. We're going to check on support. But by the time it gets to the team who's actually going to deliver that customer service, it's one sentence. It's going to come out like, we need to make our customers happy. That's it. But the how has been muddled. The entire message has been muddled. So the QA, the quality assurance, should be on the speed of information and also on the completeness and the accuracy of that information traveling through how this is happening in your organization. And you can use your existing technologies, and you can even do an informal check just talk to the teams and say, it's the end of the day. Earlier this morning, we received an announcement from our CEO. I just want to check if you've been able to receive that announcement and if you can share back that announcement to me. So it can be as simple as that, just for you to make sure that everything is traveling at the speed you want it, right? So the last piece here is focus on home networking tools that support participation to internal meetings and external events. A lot of companies we work with, the resolution has been this. And I'm sure with you guys, it might be the same, right? Where we need to focus on learning. Even in our own company, we said that because of the nature of business today, there is a bit of time we can allocate to learning. So we've got onto courses for Udemy, we've got on digital marketing courses, we even have masterclass. We've got a lot of these courses that we've disseminated to our teams so that they can start learning. So when you look at your tools, when you look at your connectivity, the way that your tools are being used, are you able to connect them to your goals of collaborating, even if it's Zoom, even if it's Skype, even if it's Google Hangouts? How are you managing that? Are you making sure that these tools are actually easy for people to use? Because we've seen this where some conferencing apps, it takes forever for an employee to connect. And everybody just goes, can you hear me? Is it clear? And your first 5 minutes are spent on checking connection, checking on bandwidth, checking on clarity of voice. So by now you should have solved that. And if not, just do an audit and try to see what tools will be most beneficial for you at this time. Okay? So again, just sharing a statistic here. 70% of organizations report that the main cost-cutting measure they plan to use is more effective use of technology. So obviously, especially now, the better your technology, the better you'll be able to go through this challenging time. So this is a given, and again, cannot be highlighted further in this situation that we have. All right, and second to the last, optimized integration. So obviously, when you're using technologies, you try to connect things, right? So if you're using Google Drive, that's connected to probably some reports that you have that you need to file into your internal systems, and so on and so forth, right? So you have to make sure, just as a top line for optimized integration, you've got to make sure that you've put the right pieces of the puzzle together. And the first thing on the checklist is to revisit your business objectives and make sure all processes are positioned to support these goals. Everything goes back to your business goals. So we don't buy technology just because it's the next shiny toy. Don't use any platform because our competitor is using that platform. We use certain technologies and we employ certain strategies because that's what our business goals require. So come back to your business goals. I'm sure at the start of the year you did a planning session. So it's just important to pick that up and see what are the goals for the year. How can I support that with everything I'm doing? So that's the first piece. Spot broken workflows or overlapping ones and bridge them with new processes. So I say this a lot, right? Reports. If you're filing a report on one tool or one platform and file a report on another tool, then you're not optimized. You're not efficient. You're not using your tools properly. You have to make sure that it's easy, not only for the company to achieve the goals, but for the team members, for the employees to use those tools seamlessly. And that means sometimes, or a lot of the time, when you file it in one place, it should automatically reach and get filed onto the other platforms already in some form of integration. So that's the second piece. And the third piece is implement new ways of working across the organization. So whether it's repurposing your existing technologies or acquiring new ones. So again, just take a look and do an audit and see how relevant these tools are as we're working through this situation, we encounter come down with us and saying, Ange, this is what I need. This is my business objective, and I want to be able to collaborate with more people in my organization at this time. So we're getting on calls with them. We're getting on video with them and just showing them how that's done through either a technology or either through a reframe of their strategy, reframe of their HR strategy for us to really drive that cohesion across the business. So HR is not separate from business. In fact, we need to think like business leaders first before HR. I strongly believe this. If we're not connected to the goals of the organization, we become irrelevant, we become obsolete. So we always need to connect back to that and make sure that we're aligned. And part of that is making sure that we're integrated with our platforms and technologies in the right way. All right? So just sharing this stat again with you, 86% of employees and executives cite that lack of collaboration or ineffective communication is the source of workplace failures. So again, this is a given, but highlighting it here because it is more true in the situation we find ourselves in. Please, data-driven change. We're coming into a little over a month into this community quarantine, into this lockdown, right? And we're starting to get data. We're starting to see what works, what doesn't work. So data-driven change, we go through a 3-part checklist as always. And the first is speak with your leaders on the effectiveness of the business continuity plan. So I hope and I'm sure that you've rolled out some form of a business continuity plan. How effective is it? You don't need heavy data. You don't need big data. It's as simple as checking, saying, has the information reached our people? How are they reacting to it? Do they have more questions than answers? Do they have clarity on what needs to be done today? If the answer is yes, then you're doing good. But if the answer is no or not yet sure, then we'll need to enhance that process. The second is assess the speed at which communication reaches your entire organization. So I've talked about this earlier. So this is just checking again, doing a QA. How relevant is the data? If it travels quickly, then it maintains its importance. But if it travels 1 week or 2 weeks after the fact, then it's not going to be that important or that relevant. And the third piece is, as you're getting all this information, make those adjustments, make those tweaks, right? So very important for us to take a look at the data that we're driving in and out of our organization. All right. And just sharing with you a final statistic here. Companies with a high engaged workforce are 21% more profitable. So I'll connect this now. You go back to engagement, you go back to collaboration, you go back to the adjustments you're making, how you're using the technologies. Obviously, the business goal for a lot of organizations is profitability. It's not the only important thing, but it's one of the most important things. So it's a business imperative for us to keep our workforce engaged, to keep our team collaborative, I would say, during this time. And again, we'll have to check this. We can't do this through a simple 6-month or 12-month engagement survey. We'll have to cover this on a more ongoing daily basis, even for some organizations. So what I wanted to share now, as we go through these 6, is just quick 5 minutes on how some of the technologies that TalentView is carrying can support your scale up in case you need it. So just very quickly, I wanted to go through Talligent, which is our assessment platform. We've rolled out video interviewing. So I was talking about video interviewing earlier. And if you take a look at this, it's very responsive. It can go through even on mobile or even on their desktop, right? And you get to watch the videos. You leave a question. They record themselves, they watch the video, and you can rate them and even put comments for that candidate. And when you email that video to a hiring manager, they will get to see the candidate's response, and they're also going to see the comments that you've placed. So a lot of companies we're working with don't just use this for recruitment. They're now also using this to build their leadership pipeline and their succession pipeline. So for those that are trying to, I'd say, evaluate performance and evaluate who has leadership potential, they're saying, tell me about a time you handled and led a project. How was it? How was your response to it? Did you enjoy being a leader in that project? And people start to respond, and they're able to collect those video responses and review it during this time. So the candidates, your employees, take the videos in their own time, and you review the videos also in your own time. Okay? And the second is online assessment. So alongside video interview, you can check for grit, emotional intelligence. You can check for certain skills, Photoshop, Excel, marketing skills. So if you want to test, you can assess candidates right now online. They don't have to walk in. They don't have to go through your usual process. And in fact, you can revamp that process to put assessment at the forefront of your recruitment. I would say funnel. All right. So that's on Talligent in case you need it, in case you're in talent acquisition, and in case you're still hiring, or in the event that you're still building or starting to think about your leadership pipeline. And the second thing I wanted to talk to you about, which all of us are, I'd say, more familiar with, is Workplace from Facebook. So we are the partners of Workplace here in the region, and you guys know Facebook. I don't need to orient you on Facebook, but something they've come out with in recent years, something we use inside TalentView, is Workplace. And Workplace essentially is Facebook, but separate network only for your organization. So in the same way that Facebook and Messenger have their own apps on your phone, there's a separate app for Workplace and Work Chat. And what happens here is that when you log into your Workplace, you get a news feed. You get a news feed of everything that's happening in your company, all the posts from people. So it's your very own Facebook for your own company. And how are organizations using this? This is where we're putting our TikTok challenge. This is where we're getting the pulse of employees. This is how we're disseminating information, whether it's from the World Health Organization or CNN or from other sources. This is where we put it. We can create groups. Similar to Facebook, we've created groups for our teams. Marketing, finance, sales, HR, learning. We're creating groups for our projects, and that's where people are able to collaborate. So there's even a version of live. So when we do town halls now, I go on live and people can just see what I'm talking about, react very quickly, ask the questions they want to ask. And that's only happening within our Workplace network. All right. So that's Workplace. And just sharing with you one last screenshot here. There. So this is from Sun Life Financial. We've been able to use video to share hygiene tips. We've seen an increase in posts as employees use Workplace to virtually connect and share with each other when it's not possible to be together in person. So you've got an example here of somebody viewing the CEO on mobile and people just commenting and liking, sharing, and managing everything, right? So again, last couple of slides, this is our extended workplace design. We've come up with an article here that you can also see on my LinkedIn page. We've shared the resources for you, which you can link to. So enhanced leadership communication, resilient implementation, culture and collaboration mindset, reliable and secure connectivity, optimized integration, and data-driven change. These are your 6 factors for delivering a successful extended workplace design. And at this point, I wanted to run a quick poll where we all share the results. Looking at the 6 areas or factors for the Extended Workplace Design or EWD framework, what do you think are your areas of strength? So please check all that apply. We'll take about 15 seconds for you to read through. What are you good at? What do you think you're already doing very well across these 6? All right, so we've locked in our answers. Again, you can check all that apply. We'll now view the results and see where all of us are in. So we've got about 40 people in this call across 3 countries. So we'll see where everyone is. Nice. Really, really happy to see this, guys. So I'm seeing that all of us are voting on areas of strength like enhanced leadership communication, top 1. A tie, an even tie on culture and collaboration mindset, reliable and secure connectivity, and optimized integration. And then resilient implementation, and also on data-driven change. So data-driven change, that's expected. We're just about gathering the data now, so it's the time to adjust. But this is good to see, and now you know that you're not alone. You're not alone in your challenges. You're not alone in the gaps that we need to address. And then this is something that's good to see, a good start for us as we're monitoring this situation. So with that, are there any questions? You can type this into the comments. And I'm checking Q&A now just to see if there are any questions that come through. Of course, you can still reach me on my LinkedIn or reach TalentView through our Facebook and LinkedIn pages as well. So don't hesitate to ask questions even after this webinar. So I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to move on to just some final notes. A copy of the webinar resources will be emailed to you within the next 24 hours. So the recording to you 24 hours from this webinar. And additional resources on your resources list are available for download now. So please feel free to just pick up any primers, any worksheets that you think you can share back to your team or you think are useful to you as additional reading material. And lastly, I'm inviting you to take a survey. Again, it's on your right side. Please let us know how we're doing. Please let us know how we can improve our webinar Wednesdays. And I will be raffling off my book, Rethink Recruitment, to 3 people that are going to be selected at random from our attendees list today to receive a copy of that book once you submit your feedback survey. So we're only going to open the raffle to everyone that gives their feedback, and we're going to give the 3 people, 3 special people, random people, a copy of the hardbound book, or rather a hard copy of the book once we get this lockdown lifted, and we'll send that straight to you. All right. So please take time to fill out the survey. And I'm also inviting you to connect with me on my LinkedIn page. So you can use your mobile phone. Just take a picture of this QR code and we'll be automatically connected on LinkedIn if we're not yet connected. So again, thank you so much for joining us. I do appreciate the time that you've taken to be here today across all the countries that have joined. Thank you so much. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with us, whether by sending an email or getting on our website to learn more about Workplace or Taligent, learning about our learning programs such as this webinar Wednesday, and of course, our LinkedIn page, TalentView. So with that, thank you so much, and we do hope to see you in our future learning activities and learning sessions. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you, guys. Bye.